Hello, everybody, and welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, welcome. My name is Shay. I make videos about horror movies, horror TV shows, horror games, and theme parks because I live in Central Florida and I feel like it would be a crime not to. And if you're not new here, welcome back. Thank you for joining me again. This is not what I had planned for this week. This is not at all what I had planned for this week, but as we know, they like to just throw movies, horror movies on, well, throw movies in general, but throw them on streaming services unannounced, and then you're just kind of like, oh wow, that's coming out. I didn't originally plan to do this review of this movie this week. It was going to be Yellow Jacket season 2. I'm still in the process of finishing Yellow Jacket season 2. I think I have like 3 episodes left. I've been breezing through them today. I've been trying my best, but that'll be my next video because I'm pretty sure I'll get it finished by this week. So that'll be my next video. But today we are going to talk about Wolfman, the movie that came out earlier this year in 2025. Yeah, earlier this year. We're going to talk about that. This is a movie that I didn't really have any expectations for, but honestly, I didn't hate it. I didn't hate it. It wasn't awful. But we're going to get into that. Before we get into that, why don't you go ahead and like the video? I'm going to tell you now and probably again later. But yes, no, thank you guys so much for joining me. And let's just get started on this creepy critique. Alrighty then. So, the movie that we're going to be reviewing today is Wolfman. And the synopsis for this movie is this. Blake and his family are attacked by an unseen animal and in a desperate escape barricade themselves inside a farmhouse as the creature prowls the perimeter. As the night stretches on, however, Blake begins to behave strangely, transforming into something unrecognizable that soon jeopardizes his wife and daughter. It came out on January 17th. It's directed by Leigh Whannell. It has Julia Garner and Christopher Abbott in it. And it's got a 5.6 out of 10 on IMDb and a 50% on Rotten Tomatoes. My initial thing I heard about this movie was that it wasn't good, but I don't know. It is supposed to be a reimagining of the original Wolfman tale. And if you know anything about that, that's a Universal picture. It seems like Leigh Whannell is doing a lot of those, because I mean, he did The Invisible Man and he reimagined that, and then this one as well. I think if you're able to put that, like the fact that it's supposed to be like the Wolfman movie, I think if you're able to put that out of your head, then yeah, it's a pretty decent movie. But anyways, let's kind of go through the finer points of this movie, and then I will kind of give my feelings at the end and my skull rating. So, the movie starts out with a young Blake and his father Grady. They are, they are in the woods. They're in the woods and they're getting ready to hunt. As they're walking through the woods, Grady is kind of trying to teach Blake some survival skills, telling him that, yeah, we got to make sure that, you got to make sure you're on alert. You got to make sure you pay attention to everything, all that type of stuff. As they're walking through, they start to hear this creature chittering. And so Grady is really focused on like one direction, but Blake is like, oh, maybe there's a deer over there, and he runs off. Like kids do, I guess. So he runs off and he's getting ready to like hunt whatever this is, and you can still hear it chittering. It doesn't quite sound like a deer, honestly. It's definitely something much, much worse. So Blake is getting ready to do this. The chittering is getting a little bit more aggressive, and then Grady shows up, and honestly, that was the jump scare for me. He came up and he was like yelling. He shows up and he's like, you have to listen to me. Don't do this type of stuff. This is ridiculous. Like, you have to make sure you're paying attention when you're in the woods because, it's dangerous. There's bears, there's this. So he tells him to get into I don't know what it's called. I forgot what it's called already, but it's almost like a tree house, but it's not a tree house. They use it a lot for hunting. Or I don't know if they use it a lot for hunting, but I remember seeing it in King of the Hill, where you kind of like go up into this like almost looking like a tree house looking thing, and then you like have your weapon and you can scope out the animals that are there from a safe distance. So he tells him to go in there, and they both run in there. They close the door, and then you hear banging on the door. And then there's sort of like that moment where you think that you're going to see the creature come up over the door, but that doesn't ever come. Then it goes back to Grady and Blake at their house. And Grady is talking to somebody on like a CB radio, and he's saying that, it's out there, and he's like, I know it almost attacked my son. And Blake is walking down the stairs, of course, being like a kid, and he hears this, and he's like, what's he talking about? And then, of course, Grady hears him behind him, and he kind of turns around, and he's just like, you shouldn't be down here. And then it cuts to the future when about 30 years later is what it says. So when Blake is now an adult, he's married to Charlotte, who is a journalist. They have a daughter named Ginger. And it seems like, Blake has really taken the role of like doting father very well. Him and Ginger have like a very incredible bond. They're both really close to each other, and the beginning of their story kind of shows this. They're joking around with each other. She's asking for ice cream even though she's already had a sweet treat. Um, and then of course she starts doing something naughty, and then Blake pulls her off of, like, she was walking on like a barricade. Blake pulls her off of there, and he's like, because he was calling her, and he's like, you have to listen to me, and he starts, yelling at her. But then he kind of realizes, and he's like, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to do that. He's like, it's just like, you do have to listen to me because that was very dangerous. You could have gotten hurt. Which I kind of liked that they showed that. Like, um, not to go off on too much of a tangent, but I think it's normal for parents to lose their minds. I mean, I'm not a parent, but I think it's normal for parents to lose their minds. I mean, we're human, but I like the fact that he apologized to her, because we don't often see that. We oftentimes see a parent getting frustrated and then just continuing to be frustrated. And I like the fact that he acknowledged that, okay, I shouldn't be raising my voice at her. That's not going to get the point across. It's just going to scare her. So I'm going to apologize to her for raising my voice, but I'm also going to drive the point home that I'm trying to protect you. That's my job. I'm trying to protect you. And so I thought that was really nice. I thought it was a really good choice. I don't know. That was something that stood out to me in the movie, and I really liked, was that he caught himself, losing his mind a little bit, getting a little bit more aggressive with his child. And then he realized, and he kind of pulled himself back and was like, no, like, I'm not going to be that kind of dad. So then we see them in their home, and they're joking around, him and Ginger, and then Charlotte comes in, and she's a busy businesswoman who has no time for anything else but business. So she comes in, and she's, like, talking on the phone to her editor. She's all irritated, and Blake keeps telling her, even though she's on the phone, he keeps telling her, can you take that in the other room? Can you take that in the other room? And he keeps telling her that. And she finally hangs up the phone, and then she turns to him and she's like, can you not do that? And so they get into a little bit of an argument. Well, like a little bit of an argument, and they start fighting. And Ginger even points out, she's like, when I get older and I have kids, I'm not going to fight in front of them. And I think Blake says something like, we're not fighting, we're discussing passionately, or something like that, which again, it's funny to me. It's funny the way they handled that. So again, it's clear that Charlotte and Blake they've kind of hit a bit of a snag in their marriage, and they're both just at a different place. So then it shows you Charlotte at work. She's like stepping out to have lunch, and Blake is sitting on the steps waiting for her. So she goes over, she sits and she talks with him, and he tells her, he brought her lunch, but then he also asks her, like, are you happy? And she's like, yeah, I'm happy, everything's good. So he says, you really need to spend time with, your family. You need to spend time with your daughter, with me. And he says that to her, and she's like, oh, I don't know if I know how to really be a mom, like, anymore, which is a very sad thought. Now, earlier in the previous scene, Blake had received this paperwork that declared his dad legally dead. Now, his dad had just gone missing. Nobody could find him, but they declared his dad legally dead. So now all of his dad's belongings, including the farmhouse that he grew up in, is like, basically it's his. So he has to go to Oregon to clear out all of his dad's stuff and probably sell the farmhouse. So he asks Charlotte, he's like, why don't you and Ginger come with me? We're going to go over there. My favorite trope in horror movies is when I'm gonna say it, okay? I'm not trying to be mean, but my favorite trope in horror movies, and I'm sure you've seen this joke, is when white people have a really rough time in their lives, they just go to a different location, and it's usually haunted or cursed. It's a trope in horror movies. It's like, oh, we had a really rough time in the city, and now we moved to this remote house, and oh my god, the remote house is possessed by demons. So again, I mean, I'm not saying anything bad about white people. I'm just saying that that's a meme that I've seen where it's like that's what they do. They go in horror movies. They go to a different location. So they're like, at first Charlotte's like, I can't really do that. I can't like take time off of work. He's like, well, you can work from home, like you don't need to, like, we don't need to be like at the office. So she's like, okay, yeah, let's do it. So then we cut to them going to Oregon with their moving truck to get all of his dad's stuff out. As they're driving, they're trying to figure out where they're going. Of course, there's no cell service. There's never any cell service. And Blake doesn't really remember where his old house is, and he's kind of like, I'm not sure if this is the area. So he pulls up to like a gated driveway, and he's trying to figure out if it's his dad's gate. And then his daughter says, there's somebody in that tree house, and that's why I called it a tree house. And they're like, what? No. And then they look over, and there's a shadow of somebody standing in the treehouse. So he's like, huh? So then the person comes down from the treehouse, and it turns out to be a kid that Blake grew up with named Derek, who's their dads were good friends. And so Derek is just kind of like, oh, like, this is my driveway, your dad's is further down. And he's kind of acting a little bit creepy and weird, and you think he knows something that he probably doesn't know. Um, you think he knows something that, you don't know. So he then says he can show them, but he has to get in the car with them. And at first, Charlotte is like, absolutely not. This dude's carrying a rifle. Like, he's talking really creepy. But Blake is like, yeah, no, come on in. So he gets in the car. He's directing them down the road. And as they're driving down the road, and, he's telling them that there's stuff in this woods that are very dangerous, and that, they may not be safe here. And of course, they're like, oh, yeah, we're tough. We can handle it. But as they're doing that, Blake looks up, into he looks out onto the road, and there's somebody standing there. So he swerves to like avoid hitting that person, and then just goes off the side of the road into like a forest, basically. And the truck lands in a tree. So they're all in there. They're all panicked. They're freaking out. He's trying to figure out what he can do to get his wife and daughter out. So he, helps. He helps Ginger out first. Then he helps Charlotte, and then he's getting ready to go help himself and help Derek, who Derek was kind of like out of it because, of the impact. And as he's going to do that, Derek opens the door on his side and falls out. Then they hear this weird chittering noise, the same one we heard in the beginning, and all of a sudden we see Derek get dragged away screaming, and there's definitely something going on there. And then at some point, I really wasn't able to tell because the movie was really dark and I was watching it during the daytime. At some point during this exchange, the creature scratches Blake on his arm. Don't know when it happened. I didn't really see the impact. It just looked like he like smashed the glass, and that was it. But yeah, he scratches him. So then Blake gets out of the moving van. They all get out of the moving van, and they go up, and they try to get to the house. And as they're running, this creature is now gaining on them. You can hear it. It's growling. It's running behind them, and they're running. They finally make it into the house. Blake is like in survival mode. He's like, we gotta board up these doors. We gotta like put stuff in there. He's like, we gotta check. He's checking all over the house, pushing things in front of the door. And then he goes downstairs. He gets the power on, and he's like, okay, we're just gonna have to stay here. This creature is not letting up. It's like, it's chilling outside. It's like, all right, hey, I'll wait till you guys are, you leave your guard down. So at first, Blake in Charlotte are just really trying to figure out how they can get any sort of like help. So he asks Charlotte to use the CB radio to see if there's anyone that he can contact, that she can contact, so that they can be rescued. He's trying to keep his daughter calm, and he has her, he's like sitting with her while she's sleeping and stuff like that, and talking to her. But then he goes downstairs while Charlotte is using the CB radio, and he smells something kind of strange. And he's like, do you smell that? And she's like, no. He opens up a door, and it's like a meat room, basically. There's like meat hanging, and it's apparently his dad would make beef jerky. So it's beef jerky that he's making there. So Blake picks him up and he's like, "Oh, my dad, this is some of my dad's jerky. I didn't know he still had it." And he takes a bite of it. And then he starts talking about a pain, and then he's like kind of spits out, and it's one of his teeth. Then he realizes something's just kind of off. And then Charlotte looks and she's like, your arm, let me see. And he's like, "Oh, I think I cut it when I was getting out of the I think I cut it when I was getting out of the truck." And she lifts up his sleeve, and it's very clearly not a cut from glass or anything like that. It's very clearly something else. So she starts, taking care of him. She starts, she wraps she cleans off the wound. She wraps it in like a bandage, and he's just starting to not be well. So for this next few minutes, we see him really like struggling. He's really sweaty. He doesn't feel well at all. And then there's just this one part where he hears like a weird noise upstairs, and he starts walking upstairs, and he like opens a closet door, and he's looking in the closet door, and then there's just a really big spider that just walks by, and I'm like, is that what you see when you're transforming into a werewolf? Like you see giant spiders? Because if that's the case, I don't want it. Like, you can keep that. So yeah, he sees this big spider. I mean, it was big. It was climbing up the wall, and he's just looking at it like calm. I mean, I guess like he's probably out of it, so maybe he doesn't even think that's real. Maybe it wasn't real. Maybe it was just in his head. So he sees that, and then he's really like stumbling around. He's starting to lose it, and he's not really able to speak anymore. He's not really able to speak. He can't really understand his wife or his daughter. He loses the ability to understand them. So he's trying to talk to them, but everything that he says comes out as like grunts. Everything he says comes out as grunts. And then when he hears them, he can't hear anything. It's just gibberish. It sounds like they're talking like Sims almost. um, so he's struggling. They're trying to figure out how to communicate. She asks him like, to write down what is going on. And he writes down the word dying, and she's like, "Oh goodness, like something's wrong." So she tries to call, for help. She's like, "My husband's really sick." And then she's checking on him, she's talking to him, and then she realizes that, it might be something going on with the bite. So she lifts up his sleeve, she takes off the bandage, and it's just, I mean, it's covered in blood, and his arm is just kind of rotted away at this point. It looks really bad. And this is the part that my jaw hit the floor at this part. I was like, dude. So he's like chilling there, and like she's checking and she sees it. She's like, "Oh my God, what happened? What's going on?" And this man just jumps up, runs across the room. He's like flinging himself around, he's getting a little bit feral. And then he starts eating his own arm. I was like, this man is eating him. He's literally chomping on his arm. So he's over here chomping on his own arm, and then he kind of snaps out of it and realizes what he's doing, and he like panics a bit. And again, he still can't speak, and he still can't understand her. So he goes back into bed, and everything is fine. Then this is when the movie for me took a really stupid turn. I get that he was sick, and I get that like in a situation like this, you probably would immediately be like, "Oh, this person's sick, let's get them help." But Charlotte knew that the creature was still outside. She knew that the creature was still outside. It was really dumb of her to then see a truck outside and go, "Maybe I can get this truck started and we can get back to safety." You can't wait till morning? I mean, like, not that it would have mattered because he did turn before morning, but like, I'm just saying, you can just wait till morning. Like, the creature's still out there, even if it's not directly at the house, like, it'll hear you. So she gets Ginger and Blake out the house and into the truck, and she has to jump the truck because it's really, really old and it's not working. And of course, that's creating so much noise, which is probably attracting the werewolf that's out there. So she goes to try to start the car. It's the truck. It's not starting. She gets out. She checks it again. She starts it. She finally gets it started. She gets out. She unhooks the jumper cables, closes the hood, gets in the car, and then the wolf just jumps on the front of the hood of the car and smashes his hand in to try to get them. So then her, Ginger, and Blake run out of the car, and they climb up on top of, I don't know what this was. It looked like it was maybe a place for plants a little bit. But it was like this big tented area, and they climb up on top of that. And like when they climb up on top of that, when they climb up on top of that, the wolf goes inside of it, and he starts trying to get them by jumping up. So Blake realizes that he is not going to be able to stop this wolf. They're not going to get away from this wolf creature. So he decides to kind of urge his wife and daughter without, he can't say anything, but he's kind of telling them to go back to the house. And then he's going to attempt to fight this thing. So they go back to the house. They're chilling. They don't know what to do. They're scared. They've heard yelping. Ginger's mad at Charlotte. She's like, "You left him there to die," and she's screaming at her. And then the door opens and in walks Blake, and Blake is not looking good at all. He is barely able to stand. His body is changing. He's losing his hair, and he goes and he plops himself down. He's coughing. So then Ginger goes into the room where he's at, and she goes over to him and she puts her hand on his forehead, because she always did this thing where she would put her hand on his forehead and read his mind. So she puts her hand on his forehead and she's like, "It's me, it's your daughter." And she's trying to talk to him. And of course, he can't hear her. And then he, at this point, fully transforms. His claws start to grow longer. His his jaw like unhinges kind of, and it's and he has like a, I guess it's an underbite. He has an underbite now. He's got, his teeth have gotten longer. His hair is all gone, but he's got a little bit more hair on his body, and he's definitely, his eyes are like white now. He's definitely something that is not good. So then he starts chasing Charlotte and Ginger. My theory is that he's not chasing them to hurt them necessarily. I don't know if that's true, but he's not chasing them to hurt them necessarily, that he's more chasing them because he can't speak and he's trying to like iterate what's going on. So as he's chasing them through the house, suddenly the other wolf, the original wolf that scratched him or bit him or whatever, bursts into the house, and then the two of them get into a wolf fight. They're throwing each other around, and then Charlotte tries to get in on it by stabbing the other wolf, and it's like chaos. And then finally, Blake bests the other wolf. He bites the wolf in the throat and kills the wolf. Then he looks at the wolf and he realizes something, and he gets up and he runs out of the house. So then Charlotte goes over to the wolf's body, and she looks and she sees a tattoo on the wolf's body that was the same tattoo that Grady, Blake's father, had. So the wolf was Blake's father this entire time, right? Totally. He's totally the wolf man. So then they go into the barn to try to figure out what they're going to do next. And then here comes Blake again. He ends up getting caught in a bear trap. And so he chews his own leg off and then crawls after them, which was that part was really scary. I was like, I don't like the fact that this man is on all fours. I mean, he's missing one leg, but he's on all fours, just like hauling ass towards me. And they're running, and then they finally get to one of those treehouse things. And they get in there, Ginger and Charlotte, and they close the door. And then we have the moment where, like I said in the beginning of the movie, you thought that the wolf was going to peek over the side of the treehouse. We finally get that moment, but with Blake. But it's not necessarily scary because it's more sad. Blake pulls himself up, and you can kind of see in his eyes that he's done. He doesn't want to go on. So Ginger says to Charlotte, he wants to end this. So Charlotte, she has the rifle. She takes the rifle and she blasts him. And then they go down to to his body, and they sit next to him as he slowly dies. So Wolfman is dead. Blake is dead. So then after that, they have to figure out how they're going to get back home, and they start walking, and the movie ends with Charlotte and Ginger looking out at the view from the cabin, because that was something that Blake had told them was really, wonderful about that place. And that's Wolfman. So my initial thoughts, I didn't have, like I said before, I didn't really have expectations for this movie. This wasn't a movie that I was thinking was going to be like great or was going to suck. The thing is, I don't go into things wanting them to fail. I always say that I don't go into things wanting them to fail. This movie was pretty decent. Is it like the best movie that I've seen in a long time? No, but it's certainly not the worst. I've seen a lot worse. Even in recent years, I've seen a lot worse than Wolfman. Is it something I would say is like my top 10 in, it's going to be in my top 10 at the end of the year. No, probably not. There'll probably be better things that come out, but this was definitely one of those movies that I just found to be like, it was more sad than scary, but I love the take on the Wolfman, the wolf transformation. I love seeing it from that perspective. And I kind of liked the design of the wolf, even though I wish he had more hair, because it was reminiscent of the original Wolfman. It was very reminiscent. Like, especially in the face, it really did look like the original Wolfman. So I rocked with it. I rocked with it. I ain't gonna lie. Um, the acting was pretty decent. The plot was pretty good. I mean, I figured out that it was his dad. The wolf was his dad, like early on in the movie. So, like, the plot was pretty decent. The special effects, I think I'm pretty sure they used makeup for the wolves. It was really good. It was really good makeup. So, I mean, it's not a bad movie. It's not a terrible movie. It's just not spectacular, and it's one of those things where it's like, did you really think it was gonna be spectacular? I mean, like, most movies are good. They're enjoyable. If you can sit down and watch the movie and have a good time while watching it, then it's a decent movie. And that's how I feel about this. Like, I had a good time watching it. It was a very interesting take on the Wolfman lore, and I think that that's cool. The one thing I will say though, I know they canned the dark universe thing that they were doing. I know they canned that, not the dark universe and epic universe, but like the dark universe that they were doing is trying to do like an MCU, but with the classic monsters. I know they can that, but I wish that we could have something like that. I wish there was some connectivity to it, but it's fine. Not everything needs to be a universe. Um, Still, this movie was all right. I think the worst thing about this movie for me was that it the worst thing about this is that it didn't really feel like a werewolf movie. Like, there weren't really werewolves, I guess, by werewolf lore, because they were always like that. The wolves were always like that. They were always in wolf form. Like, they never changed out of it. So that, I think, was the only thing that bothered me. But other than that, I mean, the movie was fine. I don't have any qualms. I don't hate it. I don't think it was the worst movie I've ever seen. And I mean, I'd recommend it if you're looking for something that's easy to digest. It's pretty easy to digest. Um, it is sad in parts. It is really sad in parts, especially the ending I thought was really sad. But it's a decent movie. It's not terrible. If people, I think, had way too high of expectations for this. And honestly, I will say it probably got like super super hated on because of the thing that Universal Studios did last year during Halloween Horror Nights, where they revealed the Wolfman's look, and they didn't do a good job of it because he looks better in the movie than he did at the park. Like, that was bad. That was really bad. He looks better in the movie. But yeah, overall, decent movie. I give it a 3 out of 5 skulls. It's not the worst thing I've ever seen. I would recommend it if you're just looking for something interesting to watch. Um, it's a cool take on it. It's not bad. So yeah, 3 out of 5 skulls for me. This is probably the shortest movie review I've done in a long time. It's under 30 minutes. But yeah, so I'm gonna get out of here because I don't have anything else to say about this movie. It was decent. I liked it. If you want to see it, it's on Peacock. Go check it out. So yeah, I'm gonna get out of here because I'm going to eat dinner and then get ready to wind down for the evening. But again, thank you so much for watching this video. If you like this video, like the video, subscribe, share it with your friends, leave a comment down below. Anything that lets me know that you liked what you just saw. Next video will be the Yellow Jackets Season 2 review, and then after that we are going back to Poppy Playtime. I'm going to try to finish all 3 games back to back and then do my lore video and wrap this baby up in a tight little bow because I have other stuff I want to get to. Check out my Last of Us recaps I've been doing on Mondays if you've watched the show. I'm gonna try to do that with any big horror show that comes out, do like recaps, except I know that certain ones, they're just gonna be bingeable, but in this case, I can do like a recap like this. So yeah, let me know what you think of this movie, if you saw this movie, if you liked this movie, if you hated this movie, let me know what you think. I'm interested in hearing it. So yeah, I'm gonna get out of here. Thank you all for joining me, and I will see you next time with another creepy critique.